Hey guys, I am Big and Scary. I'm bringing you another StarCraft 2 replay, this time on Daybreak LE, featuring the blue Zerg in the bottom left corner, sLing, and in your top right we have the red Terran, PaleRider. Both players are low diamond, high platinum. It's a ladder match between the two, so we're going to see somebody move up, someone move down, or maybe, just to show you why the other two are in the opposite league. Daybreak's not the most of innovative maps, not the, it's not super, it doesn't really innovate anything is what I'm trying to say, if I use that word properly. You've got the medium choke leading into the natural, which is kind of pigeonholed away from the ramp. You have the actual choke down here by the destructible debris, but you have a secondary pathway, making that one kind of superfluous. And the destructible debris can't be counted on to complete the wall off, so you kind of have to double wall off behind it. It's still nice to be used as a choke, especially the Protoss player really like to hole up here if they're using that Immortal Sentry build against the Roaches, just because it's such a narrow choke. PaleRider, though, is creating his own choke by throwing down the supply depot barracks, probably another supply depot there. No early gas out of him, so that means no early tech. We don't see any cheese coming out of sLing. We're well past the point where we'd expect to see a spawning pool if he was going to try to harass PaleRider with any super early lings. Daybreak does have a pretty long pathway between the two, rush distance, as it's called by people who actually know what they're talking about. We can see PaleRider's actually throwing down an engineering bay down by the natural to deny the proper placement of this hatchery. sLing doing something I've never seen before, which is placing the macro hatch before you actually have the expansion. I'm assuming that that's going to be a macro hatch if he allows it to go up. Normally, I would just go up and take the third and switch it up to maybe a rush to max roach build or something like that, but I don't know what sLing is trying to do here. Maybe this is going to be a macro hatch. We can see that PaleRider allowed the engineering bay to finish, which is also abnormal. Usually you see people cancel that so that they can recoup the resources there. Well, just cancel the building, but allow the shell to stay there and come back at a later time and fully cancel it. A drone from sLing has made it into the base, gets that extractor steel. No gas has been taken yet. It looks like it was just to protect the drone, which continues to scout. No extra bunkers coming down from PaleRider, as well as any of the geysers being tapped. We can see both players are floating a lot of resources, probably preparing to take another expansion. This drone is coming down, hoping that I guess maybe this engineering bay could learn to fly and leave, or maybe it's going to make its way up to the third, but no such luck. Spawning pool does finish. We're going to see a lot of Zerglings on the way, as well as two queens. Both queens very, very handy whenever the injects get lined up like that, and you can do that by building both queens simultaneously, just like sLing did. It's one of those little handy tips to allow the macro to just flow better, and if there's any macro mechanic that is unwieldy, it is the larva inject from a queen, because it's so crucial to get all of them, and it's so easy to just miss one. Command center being built by PaleRider. He's going up to the 3 racks. Probably going to see some add-ons and this gas taken shortly. Pretty standard, just an expansion build. We can see the engineering base going to get targeted down by those queens, but without some Zerglings to reinforce that aggression, the engineering bay is going to be there for quite a while. It's got a lot of hit points for such a cheap structure, which makes it so valuable for this harass. Some long distance mining going on, but once we see that engineering bay go down, I expect that, natural to be placed. Finally, a gas coming for sLing. He's going to get that metabolic boost, and then probably going to see what tech path he's deciding to go on. It's definitely a 2-base play. Definitely a delayed aggression, but with PaleRider pushing out to take his expansion, both players are positioning for that more macro-oriented play. Both gas taken by sLing as another barracks goes down. Still no add-ons at all, but that's to be expected, just because of the delayed gas. A lot of Marines coming out with the bunkers, but no wall off. Again, PaleRider's feeling pretty comfortable having denied that expansion. He's got his SCV position up at the third, so he knows that hasn't gone down, and he hasn't taken a peek down at this third in a while to make sure that this is also a place that the Zerg could have expanded to. but he's feeling comfortable that with the SCV position there, he knows that sLing's economy is going to be stunted. You can just see that they're pretty much neck and neck on the amount being mined. Terran has a little bit of a deficit, but that's more than made up for by mules. And sLing is only mining off of one and a half bases, with the positioning of this hatchery being so awkward at the moment. Once that other one pops, we're going to see him burst in the lead, because the saturation down on the natural for PaleRider's a little bit stunted also. Wall is beginning to be constructed. Those supply depots are incredibly valuable whenever it comes to preventing the Zergling run by, which the metabolic boost is on its way. As well as tech labs. Tech labs on the bunkers, they're going to start working on their research, I'm sure. There goes combat shield and stim pack. Look at that. Both of them start at the same time means that they're not going to finish at the same time, which means that the Marines are going to have combat shield before stim pack. Basically, it's not a timing attack is what I'm trying to say. These Marines aren't going to suddenly move out and do some damage, because, you know, there's a good amount of defense. sLing's getting that creep spread. He's got some spine crawlers already in position. He knows he was put a little bit on tilt by the, you know, aggression. I don't know. I don't even want to call it aggression, because it wasn't even that. It was just harassment. Just a denial of expo, and he hasn't even attempted to take the third, which means that it was never in his plans to take that third, so he stuck to his build order. It looks like it's going to be a Roach and Baneling. Banelings to take down the wall, Roaches to clean up everything else inside. That's one of those build orders that really requires a good sense of how many units, how many Banelings are required to take down that wall, and then how many you're going to have left over to take out the SCVs. It's very difficult to correctly judge just how many Zerglings you can afford to have, how many Banelings you can spend on the structures, which one to aim and target, so that the wall goes down with, you know, the fewest amount of Banelings wasted there. But then you also want to have a lot of Roaches to deal with any Marines or Marauders that are on the backside. You don't want them kiting away from the slow Banelings. And I believe that this aggression is going to take place before the lair goes up, before those centrifugal hooks can get out, so that those Banelings are going to be very slow, and with combat shield and stim already out for PaleRider, and with the one coming out also, he's going to be in a good position to deal with this aggression, just as long as those Banelings don't get us around from the Zerglings to support them. A reactor coming out building a factor coming out to build a reactor, and the starport is going to take advantage of that factory. Pretty standard, just to support the heavy bio play that we see coming out of PaleRider. This is going to be a very mobile force. It's going to take advantage of the fact that it's such a large base, but it's going to be in a lot of trouble as soon as this push hits. A lot of Banelings, definitely enough to take out the wall, should be enough to make it to the supply depot, or the SCVs in the background. But it really depends on if these Zerglings can get out of the way so that the Banelings can happen. Yep. sLing pulls back his Zerglings just in time to allow a large swell. We can see plenty of those Banelings are left. Can they make it to the SCVs to do that economic damage? It looks like they're targeting down the Marines. Only a handful of Roaches are left. 0 economic damage done, 48 to 40. Still, 1 or 2 SCVs were taken down, but not enough to justify that aggression. However, the wall was completely dealt with, and we only see a handful of Marines left. And this is where Zerg just starts to shine. As if at first you don't succeed, he's just going to try again. And he's got 54 some Zerglings pouring in. I thought I saw 54 on the production tab. I don't really know. Still not a lot of upgrades, but we can see a lot of Banelings preparing for, you know, those Zerglings just to take out that wall, which has gone right up. These bunkers are going to finish in time, but the production of units from PaleRider isn't really keeping up with this, partially because the rallies are a bit quirky. Some Marauders and Marines cut to, you know, support these units. This bunker totally empty. These Marines should have been in it. They pulled down next to the refinery. All of the ground units are going to go down. Finally, the SCVs get in on the action. We can see the 48 to 38 goes down to 36 to 38 as some massive Baneling hits finally happen. There goes the economic damage that needed to happen so that sLing could justify this sort of aggression. These Zerglings are all going to get eaten up by these Marauders and a handful of Marines that are just, you know, swinging in from the base. That was a perfect choke right there for PaleRider, but the damage has been done. That is an awful lot. And we can see on the minimap that more Zerglings are coming in, this time even less than before. But still plenty to make it into the base, especially if they push before that supply wall is constructed, or at least complete. 9 Banelings being morphed. The Orbital Command going out to take the third. This is rather ballsy. If it gets scouted at all, it's definitely going to go down, though there is no anti-air on the field for sLing. Some Roaches adding themselves into the mix. Not going to be too effective with all those Marauders. What's really effective is the Banelings that can make it into the SCV wall. Supply depot wall goes down. Multiple Banelings make it into the Marine and Marauder bundle as they finally get pushed back into the probe line. 1 SCV, 3 or 4 more Harvesters go down. Again, another economic blow, but with that third being up, sLing really needs to either completely deny this natural, completely wipe out the main, or notice the third to continue to justify this sort of harassment. He needs to take a third also. sLing hasn't succeeded in taking an expansion at all yet. He's got plenty of money, or at least the income for that money. And he's definitely succeeded in stunting PaleRider's economy as well as his army. This is a very small army. Quite a lot of medevacs up, and the production of medevacs are still going on. But what sLing has done is bought himself a hearty lead. And in order to take advantage of that lead to the maximum of his capabilities, he needs to take a third, sit back, macro, maybe even a fourth, because he knows that any aggression that's coming out of PaleRider is going to be very, very small, very minor, easily dealt with. PaleRider is pushing out with his forces fully healed by those medevacs, but a little overeager. These are all going to get picked up with the Banelings popping off fresh, and that's just going to leave the door totally open. We can see the supply depots weren't even constructed. This base is only saturated by mules at the time, so the damage to the economy is going to be minimal, but we can see that with these supply depots going down, PaleRider's going to have a difficult time keeping his army from being supply blocked. Yeah, if I do that math right, it's going to be right even. 54 to 65. No, I did my math wrong, and that's why I'm not a math major. So, Orbital Command, still mining down on the third, still unnoticed. He's got plenty of Zerglings he can definitely use. But really, sLing needs to take an expansion right now, and PaleRider needs to hold this aggression like no one else's business. A lot of Banelings making it up. The Marines shoot and scoot back into a corner. 2 Banelings almost make it to the pack. They do. 1 heavy hit goes down. Another one taking down several of the Marines, but now only a couple of Roaches are left, and they're going to get cleaned up. But another fresh swell. Oh, look at all these Roaches. This PaleRider is in a terrible position right now. His main is pretty high on the saturation, and all the mineral patches are still there, but he's going to be beginning to start get mined out. 2 supply depots are going to burn to the ground, and finally he's supply blocked. The Roaches do make it to the mineral line. Again, are doing a lot of damage, 23 to 38. The mineral income differential is absolutely enormous. sLing is in a very powerful position right now as he just continues to make more and more Banelings. Speaking of being mined out, his main is getting there. Natural still full saturation. But he's still mining off of 2 bases, as is PaleRider, but all PaleRider has is a single mule down at the main. The natural finally goes down, burning as it was flying in the air. A couple good Baneling hits. That was excellent decision making by sLing. Another supply depot goes down, further supply blocking PaleRider. It looks like he's constructing them up in the top left corner to do some supply drops, but now we see the damage being done to that infrastructure. Slowly we're going to see less Marauders being built because those tech labs are going down, as well as the mineral income is going to be small, so even the number of Marines we're going to see on the field is going to be less. These medevacs have been healing constantly since the beginning, and they have very low energy. They're going to be able to do a very small amount of healing to these units, and the units are just trickling out one at a time. And with the reinforcements pretty much constantly coming in from sLing, this is looking very grim for PaleRider. The only saving grace he has is that hidden expansion down in the bottom right corner. These Zerglings finally making it into the probe line. A huge That reminds me of whenever you step on the mother spider and they've got all the babies, and they just explode out of it. That's a nightmare right there. Zerglings finally making it and doing some hold position micro, not the best in the world because they weren't in position to do damage to the SCVs, but the number of SCVs is dwindling, 17 to 40. Still no expansion out of sLing. You still have that SCV scouting in the third. Just knowing that sLing is devoting 100% of his resources to doing this, and we're continually getting mined out in the main. Still plenty of money in the natural, I'm sure. Finally, they find the hidden third, which is now pretty much the only mining base. The orbital has been transferred from the main down into the natural, which is going to get resaturated by all these SCVs, and as well as many mules, I'm sure. As far as production goes, he's still got plenty of barracks and 1, 2, 3 add-ons, so he's going to be able to make still a lot of units. He's got a lot of gas saved up, as does sLing, which could be used to combat these medevacs. But right now sLing has such a hardy advantage in being able to mine, doing some more hold position micro on the SCV line, that sLing has just bought himself an enormous lead. He needs to sit back, he needs to macro, he needs to be content with the fact that PaleRider is barely on one base, and be content. And he can't really nail the coffin shut right now. There's too many Marauders and way too many medevacs on the field, and they've had a chance to recharge, so it's basically 1-to-1 right now. A small force is going to push out, manage to push back these roaches, but another swell is coming out. We can see that the lair tech is finally on the way for PaleRider, but I would rather that be 2 hatcheries rather than a lair tech. Those upgrades are going to be nice, especially hydralisks to deal with the medevacs, or maybe some infestors to just dump that Vespene gas into it. With this force, sLing's going to be able to push back PaleRider, who's got to be very careful and very cost-effective with his units. That cost-effectiveness is going to be helped by all these medevacs, but even an infinite number of healing isn't going to be able to push into sLing's main base. These roaches will be able to fall back until the next swell of roaches and zerglings and banelings come out. And if PaleRider's not careful, he's going to overcommit, and I think he just overcommitted whenever he stepped on that creep. But sLing is a little bit more cautious. He's not going to push out. He's beginning to run out of minerals in his main. He's only got 1, 2, 3 patches left, and some of those are under 100. PaleRider's managed to reposition his third again, and is now mining off of it with pure mules. The fact, I think the mineral income is probably, in favor of PaleRider just because of those mules, and because he already has that infrastructure in place. He's able to mainline Marines off of it. He's just got to be careful not to get supply blocked. He's getting there, with only 3 Marines being produced. If he fully used all of those barracks, he would supply block himself very quickly. Spire finally on the way also. That'll be another great gas dump, but at the time I think minerals are what we're worried about. Only 1 mineral patch now. Oh, the natural is completely mined out. That took me by surprise. I guess he was mining off of it with full saturation while the main was a little bit stunted. The third is coming up, long distance mining. He needs to finish it. Mineral income is probably dwindled to pretty much non-existence at the time for sLing, who can't really reproduce an army to deal with this army out of Pale. PaleRider is going to push in, destroy this third. sLing GG's out. He had such a lead. How is this possible? He had such a lead. Where did his army go? It was coming. He's off of creep. These guys had already stemmed. They were going to be able to kite away. Not enough roaches to do any damage. A couple of spines that weren't repositioned, but you can't really reposition them when you don't have creep. Yeah, he was in a rough spot. Didn't have any money to build anything. He should have taken a third earlier on. Should have scouted this third from PaleRider. Maybe a tech switch or that layer earlier with some hydras to back up the roaches instead of so many banelings. It would have helped with the medevacs. Good job by PaleRider. I think the cincher was that awesome hold right here with 4 Marauders, a couple Marines, and a couple medevacs healing them up, and they dealt with probably 30 or 40 Zerglings. That was probably your biggest hold. I mean, it was really chaotic when you were up here. dealing with all the sorts of aggression, some of those roaches making up to the mineral line, a lot of zerglings doing infighting in these corridors, but the SimCity of the building making it so you had these narrow hallways, basically preventing the zerglings from getting surrounds, really did a number on the amount of damage those zerglings could do. It was a really good game, though. There's great aggression out of sLing. I'm impressed. I'm impressed by both of you. If you guys are impressed with my casting, you could leave me a comment. If you're not, you could leave me a comment. And if you have a game you want me to cast, you could PM me here or Reddit. One way or another, I will see you guys later. I am Big and Scary. Bye.